most of our work deals with the structure and finance of our community governments and the state and their relationship. We've come through this difficult period in the last 20 years or so where the basic structure of California's government between our community governments and the state government has changed fairly radically. Our old system, the system that many of us grew up with, was relatively neat and simple. The state had particular roles and responsibilities and a revenue source to match it. Our community governments had roles and responsibilities and a revenue source to match that. And over time, that system has changed radically. So part of our obligation, my role at California Forward, is to begin to rethink both our governance and our finance structure in a way that can bring back some basic semblance of order to how community governments are operating and how they're financed. There's an old model, I think in public administration that I grew up with and others, that the responsibility and the financing of that responsibility ought to be connected. If you have an obligation to provide a service, you have the obligation to finance that service, so that if a community wants a broader, more active governmental role, then they choose to finance that role. Well, we've moved a long way away from that, where the state provides more resources for community governments, and it can't do that forever, partly because the community government sees that, gee, this is a free good. We can get an expanded service and have the state finance it. So I think part of our role here is to look at how we can better construct both governance responsibilities and the financing of it in a way that's accountable, so that citizens of a community understand the nature of their governance and the responsibilities of their elected officials, and those two things are connected, as well as increasing transparency. We've lost a significant amount of our transparency when we don't connect services and financing responsibilities. I grew up in Southern California, both a grandfather who worked for the city of Los Angeles and a father who worked for the city of Fullerton, and these are in the post-World War II periods of 50s, 60s, and 70s, where there was a link between the citizen, those civically engaged, and community leaders. They were basically the same thing. So you didn't run for city council, you were simply an active member in participating in community government. And if you thought services need to be expanded, then you were part of a group that worked to increase taxes, if you will, resources in order to improve those services. And again, as I mentioned earlier, those two things were connected. Level of service and the resources needed to provide that level of service. My interest in state government and community government, both of those in my college years developed. We had a class where the city manager from the city of Milpitas, Dick DeLong, came to the class and talked about management practices and community governments. And all of a sudden I realized, hey, I know about this. I heard this from my grandfather and my father. This is very cool. And a small anecdote, that was a point in time where I felt I can get into this. This was probably a junior or senior year. And thought I'd like to go work for some of these people. And so most city managers in Santa Clara County at that time didn't have a whole lot of money, but Dick had some things he wanted done, and I offered to go help, do some work. He wanted the help, and that got me into some of the municipal practices around where I was going to school, and that was basically the on-ramp onto working in public policy. My advice to students who are interested in public policy, whether it's at the state or local or federal level, is to first find an issue that you care about. Not a governmental entity necessarily, but an issue, whether it's healthcare or criminal justice or environmental policy. And find a place that will pay you very little, and go there and spend a couple of years there I am one of the things I recommend to students who, through internships and the fellowship program at the state government level, when they come to work for legislators, my suggestion is don't stay here. Learn from it. Go back to a community, and if there's something you care about, go in and work in that field and then come here. So as I work with people, I try to get them to look inside. Don't just give me, I need a piece of information on X, go get it, thank you very much. But rather look inside of what's involved in it, because it is like an onion. You keep peeling it back and finding more information about it. Particularly in budgeting, I've had probably the most fun in the budgeting process. People think that it's a mystery. It is like rocket science. It goes up, it goes down. And if you understand it, and it's all about allocating resources, then you're allocating resources to different aspects of public policy, whether it's health or criminal justice or environmental quality. And the question that I learned long ago is that flexibility at the community level is important in order to meet community goals, if you will, and that those goals can't be different than a statewide goal, whether it's for environmental protection or public safety, and that our budgeting system and the way we allocate our resources needs to support that.